Hannah Griffiths jams herself between shelves in a sticky hearth in a Boston kitchen, 1768. Women's voices bounce around, half drowns the bite of boiling mint and sage. Fresh word of another British tax that's everywhere, even here. Out in the square, men get loud, waving fists and splashing speeches. But Hannah and the others, pressed close over hot mugs. No tea inside, not since the Crown's latest squeeze. They're not sipping, they're scheming, figuring out how to push back at Britain right from their own tables. It's the 1760s. The colonies aren't quiet, people stew. Britain keeps pushing. Stamp Act, Townshend Acts, the rest just fuel on the fire. The loud ones in the assemblies grab headlines, but women work in the background. They use whatever they have to fight back, not by speeches, just by living and changing small things under the king's nose. Colonial America pins women as mothers, wives, and household anchors. That's the baseline. But times crack open, war edges closer. Suddenly, women turn their kitchens into planning rooms. Letters and whispered news pass from porch to porch. The resistance needs hands. The women bring their own, steady and capable. Their homes stop being just homes. They're command centers now. The revolution leans on their networks, tight and stubborn. Sometimes being needed rewrites the job description. The British slap taxes on tea, cloth, and paper to shove their authority in the colonists' faces. Women push back first. They quit pouring British tea. They ditch imported fabrics, spinning homespun instead. This isn't just protest, it's an economic gut punch where the Crown feels it. The pushback gets organized. The Daughters of Liberty show up, women rolling up their sleeves and making their own thread, skipping British goods. They trade black tea for rough blends, stuff like sage and raspberry leaves, anything to snub British imports. Their workshops aren't just about yarn or tea. People gather, talk, plan. The resistance grows louder around those tables. Colonial women don't just manage the home. Some grab a pen and fight. Mercy Otis Warren and Hannah Griffiths write sharp poems. Loyalists get mocked. Rebels get a jolt. Their lines travel from town to town, hand to hand, kicking up talk every time someone reads them. Words move faster than tea. Their satire sticks. Spinning bees kick up in town squares. People come for the company, end up making a point. Whenever they weave in public, it's not just craft, it's a jab at the British. Each homespun coat, shirt, or dress, you can spot it. That's not just fabric, that's a protest stitched right in. Folks wear homespun on purpose, and everybody knows what it means. You're showing which side you're on without saying a word. Every morning, colonial women wake up knowing what's coming. British goods would make life easier. They shut the door on the tea, the cloth. Small routines shift bitter herbs in the teapot, homemade candles, patched skirts. Each choice stings, but every one shoves back against the Crown. Patriot mothers shoulder more than chores and child-minding. They hand down revolution by word, story, and just how they hold themselves. They shape kids at the kitchen table, teaching rebellion as much as manners. That table has teeth. It's as much a battlefield as the town green. British loyalists mock these women at every turn. The law breaks up their meetings, busts spinning wheels, sets up roadblocks. But these women don't fold. Pressure locks them together, not apart. The more the Crown clamps down, the thicker the web gets. When the men head off to fight with the Continentals, or get singled out by the British for raids or arrests, the women step up. They end up running shops, guarding the house, figuring out how to keep the kids fed, and making the farm work. Without that, families would buckle. The rebellion would too. Abigail Adams doesn't just sit at home. She writes. The letters reach husbands, sons, other rebels. Advice, protest, strategy in every line. Her words land on desks in Philadelphia and in field tents. By now, people at the very top read her, weigh her, run with her thinking. The quiet part went loud. These protests pull up old roots and drop new seeds. Ideas about rights, freedom, and what women can do in public start to take hold. Independence lands, but equality doesn't show up right away. The revolution cracks things open anyway. Debates start rolling that will go on to redraw the country's map of ideals. After the revolution, people kept these women's stories alive. Old letters, battered diaries, family chatter around kitchen tables. Their names, once barely passed between friends behind closed doors, now sit front and center when America's beginnings come up. What they left behind stands toe-to-toe with anything won with a musket. Forget the picture book stuff. The American Revolution wasn't just Washington or Congress. Women kept the engine running. Mothers, sisters, wives, even the neighbor you barely nodded to on your way down the road. They hid supplies, argued principles, refused to stay quiet when things got ugly. Every bit of resistance they managed turned the heat up. Without those small, stubborn acts in kitchens and parlors, the push for independence wouldn't have gotten far. They put their hands on the lever and pulled,